It said he has one of the most fascinating life resumes on the planet.
We've got the legendary Jesse Itzler in the house.
Living with a SEAL, 31 days, training with the toughest man on the planet.
And when you're in a routine, the clock goes fast. I was 35 yesterday. Whatever your goal is, you got to get you have to get there.
And that started our journey of like, you're about to go in a place where you've never been, motherfucker.
You know, I always tell people, and I've mentioned this before, you got to start the process. Sometimes we overthink things, we make it complicated. Just start. See where it starts to go, and then you figure it out as you go along.
Welcome back to the Cannonball Mindset, and today is, Jesse and I were just talking, today is absolutely a Cannonball moment. I've met U.S. President, I've met 3 U.S. Presidents, I met Michael Jordan, some of the greatest sports heroes, but today takes this to a whole new level. So I'm sitting with friend, coach, mentor, entrepreneur, the owner of the Atlanta Hawks, founder of Marquis Jets, founder of Seacoast Coconut Water, father of 4 kids under the age of 10, husband of one of the most recognizable women in the world, New York Times bestselling author, not once but twice, producer, co-founder, coordinator of 29029, which is amazing, and where I really got to know him, curator of Build Your Life Resume, Jesse Itzler. This guy is everywhere. Most authentic human being I think I've ever met. So Jesse Itzler, welcome to
You're
Cannonball
make me
Mindset.
Cry, man. Jesus, that's a great intro. Thank you.
Well, what's crazy, and this is what I want to start with. So you listen to, those are just some of your life resume, some of the things, right? How does that work? And I don't mean, like, we'll get into all that, but so many times people have the tyranny of the or. The tyranny of the or. And the tyranny of the or is I can be a really great father, or I can be an entrepreneur. I can be a really great husband, or I can start my own company. They don't believe that they can have it all. And what I find most fascinating about you is that I get the sense that you really do believe that you can have this life of abundance. I don't mean abundance of stuff. I mean, it's abundance of health and wealth and all of that, right? Love and significance. I'm saying, is that by design?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I agree with you. I think a lot of people think, like, they want to get one thing, or you can only be great in one area.
Right.
But I think the principles apply to everything. So I think if you can figure out how to be great in one bucket, it can translate into all the areas of your life, or all the things that you try to do. And I'm not saying I'm great at all.
Yeah.
But I think that, I try to be. I don't want to be the 80% version of me in anything that I do.
Yeah.
So, but I appreciate that. And it's something that I do try to make sure that I'm aware of, that I'm trying to be the best that I can as a dad, or at work, or as a friend, or...
Yeah. Well, I'm saying you are still in the same fantasy football league you've been in for 25 years.
Yeah.
I'm saying the idea, and I don't know who's in that group, but I do know that you've been part of it. So it's, to me, we have these buckets, and you'll talk about this, is Build Your Life Resume buckets, but we have these areas in our life, and people say, I don't have time to manage all of them, right? And so I'm going to go, to your point, I'm going to go all in on one. But listen, I'm at your house. And a couple things I noticed just walking down to your office here is your kitchen it's a beautiful kitchen, but it looks the same as every other kitchen I've ever been in when it comes to pictures of the kids and pictures of you and your wife. And there's not, like, that's real shit. Like, this is real life. And I don't think people understand that you can have all this.
Yeah. I love where this is going. I think... a lot of it is just, it's all I know. My parents had pictures up of me and my brother and my sisters. Sarah parents had pictures up of her and her brother. And I mean, that's just all that I've ever really known. But I mean, I think everybody's world gets shrunk down to a really small world, no matter how big you are.
Yeah.
You could be the Queen of Egypt, a Queen of London, or whatever, England. Your world still gets shrunk down to your immediate family, your friends, who you're with.
Yeah.
And our world is shrunk down into that kitchen. It's
Yeah.
simplified right there.
It's amazing. It really is, because I think this, people have this perception that you take really successful people, really wealthy people, people who have made it, quote unquote, made it, and somehow they believe that it just happened upon them. Like, everybody knows there's a story, but people like to create their own story of how that person got there. And Mark Cuban, who I find unbelievably fascinating. Mark Cuban still reads 3 or 4 hours a day. And I was having this conversation with somebody, and they said, yeah, but he probably has 50 chefs and he's got people to watch his kids, so he can do all that. And I just think that's such a limiting belief mindset, to think that people got there and all of a sudden that somehow it's not attainable for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. There's the yeah, but.
Yeah.
There's the rationalizing that, well, he can do it because.
Correct.
There's all these assumptions
Yeah.
that, someone like that has 9,000 nannies and people around him. That very often that's not the case.
Correct. Right.
That's like the one thing. There's a lot of misconceptions that come around with either success or wealth about people, and but anyone could read. He chooses to do that.
Correct.
And my bet is he's probably been doing it well before he was super wealthy.
Oh yeah, because he was selling computers door to door, and he would read computer manuals, literally
Right.
computer manuals, for hours on end to try to become the best at selling computers door to door in the computer mastermind. And what he doesn't suffer from is success disease. A lot of people, they become successful in one area, and they stop doing the things that made them successful. And they think that somehow it's going to be sustainable, but it's not sustainable unless you keep doing what got you
It's
successful,
true.
right? So if I've read a lot about what I could about your marriage to Sarah, and you guys are still head over heels in love, and I could see pictures of you guys all over the place. I'm sitting in your office, and there's the famous napkin framed right there. And I don't know if it's Tony Robbins or somebody once said, if you treat it like the beginning, there'll never be an end. And I think that's so true in success in life too, right?
It's true, man. I mean, I love newness.
Yeah.
I'm an adrenaline freak. I love newness. That's what makes me tick.
Yeah.
And it's hard. That's one of the challenges of a marriage. After we married for 10 years, even in business, it's just, how do you create newness? As an adult, it's really hard to welcome newness into your life. Like, how do we get newness? Maybe a vacation. Yeah. But most of us just live in routine.
Yeah.
I try to make our marriage not a routine.
Yeah.
And we always said every day is an adventure, but it's true. I mean, we work on that.
Yeah.
It's not really work. It doesn't feel like work, but we welcome newness and change, and we laugh at silly shit.
Yeah.
And we don't take it so seriously. And then the other thing I would say is that we've taken a lot of stuff off the table. Like, it's very easy to be like, oh, this isn't working, I'm gonna go get divorced, or I'm gonna quit my job. It's easy to be like, or my ankle hurts, I'm not gonna. We compromise. We compromise a lot our goals, or we negotiate our goals.
Oh my gosh.
But we've kind of like just made a lot of stuff. It's like it's not negotiable. We're taking it off the table.
Yeah.
If we get in a fight, we have to make up.
Yeah, because there's
no other. Like, what are we
Right.
gonna do? The alternative is like, I'm be mad at you forever, or we're gonna like leave. Like, no.
Yeah.
And we could get really mad at each other. We have a relationship just like anybody else.
Right.
She's gonna do stuff that's gonna drive me crazy. I'm gonna do stuff that's gonna make her think I'm mad, get her mad at me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it just goes back to we have to work this out. We're not going to negotiate down.
Yeah.
We want to have the healthiest marriage we can. So we try to get in front of issues.
Yeah.
And we try to deal with it,
I love that.
But
I love that.
we got our challenges just like everybody else.
Yeah, and I just think I think for people to understand, they see he owns the Atlanta Hawks or he sold Marquis Jets. The story of that's the idea of you owning Marquis Jets or Zico Coconut Water or the Atlanta Hawks and selling them off and doing these things. That's the result, right? There's a lot of build up before that, but people tend to focus just on the result, which is so.
Yeah, I mean that to me that's the side hustle.
Yeah.
When I look at my life in a pie chart, that's a side hustle.
Yeah.
That's not nearly as important as my health, as my relationships, as my family, as how I feel.
Yeah.
That's a job.
Yeah.
Or it's a hobby. You know, I mean
Right,
it. I mean, it might be a big business. It might be, but for me, I've never approached it as that's my life or my identity at all. And it's just, I don't really even think about that stuff very often.
Yeah, that's where I want to kind of take the conversation there is, you know, you put on this course, Build Your Life Resume. And so here's what's crazy is this, and before we jump to that topic, so I found you. You know how I found you? Did I ever tell you that? So I have twin 14-year-old daughters, and one of my daughters came in and said, "Dad, you gotta listen to this guy, Jesse Itzler, and he's friends with this guy, David Goggins." Now I hadn't heard of you before. This is my 14-year-old daughter, right? Bringing me a video clip of you on impact theory. You doing the Impact Theory podcast, right? So to me, you know what that tells me? And so I'll fast forward. So you and I become friends, or I go through your course. I DM you, and I told my daughter, look, Jesse Itzler DM me. And she got really excited. She was like, what? What did he say? And I said, look, here it is, right? She said, oh, send me a screenshot. So he said, he answered you? And I said, he answered me. And so I go to bed, and 4:30 the next morning, 4:30 a.m., I get woken up by my daughter. And I said, what's wrong? It's everything, like 4:30 in the morning, she's shaking me, right? I'm like, is everything okay? She said, Dad, I hope you're not mad, but I DM'd Jesse Itzler, and he DM'd me back.
At 4:30, I probably did.
At 4:30 in the morning, right? And if I didn't know anything about you, if I had never read anything, if I wasn't in your Build Your Life resume, that's it. That like the idea of that, and the idea that when I was 14, I wasn't looking up to entrepreneurs and authors, and I didn't have the mindset that my daughters do. I had a very fixed mindset. But what does it feel like knowing that people I used to look up Michael Jordan and all these great athletes, right? But kids now are looking up to you as somebody that they want as a role model, somebody they want. I'm saying
it's the second time you're going to make me cry, Chad. Come on. What are we doing? No, I think it's. I mean, I never look at it like that. I don't. It's amazing, super fulfilling, and I didn't. This whole world is new to me. You know, I've been living my life. I'm 50. I just turned 50. I've been in multiple businesses in completely different fields. You know, from coconut water to music to private aviation.
Yeah.
To just all these different businesses that I've been involved in. And now I have this course that you mentioned, and it's a different space for me. You know, we're trying to help people have it all or figure stuff out or offer some, you know, become aware of some of the mistakes that I've made and help navigate through some of the waters that I've been through. Yeah. And people are some people benefit from that. Yeah. And that is unbelievably fulfilling. It's the only reason why I do it. Yeah. And whether you're 14 years old or 80 years old, I think you know, the message to me is always consistent because that's what's in my DNA. Yeah. So it feels great. It feels amazing.
Yeah, because now, and that's what I, you know, talking to you about all your businesses, and we're going to get into that. But money's listen, I don't know your finances, but money's off the table now. And what I mean by that is, and it seems like it never was really about all your stories. It never was about the money. Like again, that's the result. So now it seems like you could stop. You could literally stop, and you know your wife could stop. She's unbelievably successful. You could do nothing but raise your kids, which would be a super fulfilling life, and not contribute anymore. You've contributed enough. It seems like your second act is going to surpass your first act, which is pretty hard to comprehend.
Yeah, I mean, money. It's funny because people talk about relationships all the time, but we don't really talk about or address our relationship with money. I always say money and time are two relationships that are neglected. You know, we don't really have a clear understanding of. We think we do. Everybody says, "Oh, time is everything," but people don't manage their time properly, or they don't give themselves permission to say no, to allow more things in their life of what they love to do. Yeah. And money is the same thing. I think, you know, I'm doing the same things now that I did when I was 21 years old. My house is bigger. I have a little bit more brown rice and bananas to eat, but everything is the same. Yeah. right when you came in today. Thanks, by the way, for coming to my house. That makes it easier. It's better.
The fact that I'm invited into this house, I'm saying
super comfortable,
yeah,
and just it's just a better environment than doing something through Skype.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
But today, when you walked in, I had my high school friend here that I've been friends with since elementary school friend, I should say, who came to visit me. We went for a walk. We took a steam. You know, I had a smoothie. That's the same stuff that's what I like to do since I'm 18. Now, just because you have money, that doesn't mean all of a sudden, like, well, I'm going to skip the walk. I'm going to take a ride in a chauffeur, and I'm going to, and someone's going to go make me some. It's like it's the same thing.
Same thing. Yeah, money just magnifies your core, right?
It just magnifies it. I mean, now listen, don't get me wrong. It provides a lot of advantages.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about things that maybe I was worrying about when I was 20. But when I look back on it, man, it was super fun to worry about that. Like, I don't think I would appreciate it all if I didn't go through that worry. I was just talking to my friend on the walk today, and I was saying to him, like, because here we are, we're about to turn into 2019. And I said to him, I'm like, think back right now. And I said, forget about what you did 5 days ago, because I know you can't tell me what you did off the top of your head 5 or 6 days ago.
Right.
I said, but like, give me 10 big moments in 2018. 365 days, give me 10 big moments that you had in 2018. Yeah. I said, I'm not even going to ask you to go back to 2008, 10 years ago, and give me 10 things, because I know you can't do it. Right. But I want you to, and I wasn't attacking them. Yeah. It's the same with me too. Yeah. I was saying, like, we were having one of those, like, well, we just turned 50. What do the next 30 years look like? And I'm like, well, let's go back 30 years. I know you've had a lot of great memories, but how many moments from last year alone are clear, amazing memories in your head? And like, we both struggled.
Yeah, right.
And it made me like realize, and I'll bring this full circle back to the money thing, but it made me realize, like, it's really important. Like, what are we doing it for?
Right.
What are we doing it for? You work so hard, and then, like, for what? Like, what do you really want, or what are you getting out of it? Because, and I was saying to him, it's really important to memorialize important moments. You had one in the Cannonball in the pool. That's what you named your whole podcast after. You had this moment where you locked eyes with your daughters. They jumped in, and you wanted to stop the clock and freeze it. And you made a memory chip. And now you're like, I want more of those things. Yeah. That's what everybody wants. Yeah. Everybody wants that Cannonball moment. The reality is, I think we have a lot of those every day, you know, but we're so busy that we don't memorialize it and be like, wow, this is like, we're going so fast that we're just like, that was an amazing thing. Yeah. And then we think about all the things that go wrong, and those become the heroes of the day. Those become the heroes of the week. You know, like, oh my God, it could be anything from my pipe, you know, the roof is leaking, and that becomes the hero, and it ruined my day. How did it ruin your day? Right. You have 4 healthy kids. You have this. You have that. You're able to. You know, what are you talking about? Yeah. It's part of like the day. Yeah. So I think it's really important to memorialize things as they happen. And I from our walk today, you get these like learning things. You never know where they're going to surface. One thing that I realize is I want to create a journal that I can give to people in the course or share it with friends that really helps people document over the course of, because you forget. Like, if I said to you, Chad, tell me, man, in 2010, what'd you do? Yeah, right. You'd be like, you'd have no idea. You'd be like, none. I mean, maybe you could pull 2 or 3 things. Right. Even big moments like your wedding or the birth of the twins, you remember it, but it's not really as clear as it should be. Now, that's the human mind at work, and I get it. But if we were really, really, really like super present, made a moment when it was done, or even just wrote it down, be like, here's what I felt. And I wish I had that. Oh, yeah. I wish when I was 30, as you were talking through, I had, because all I have at the end of my 10-year run with Marquis Jet is the net result. Yeah. I know how I feel about people. I know I went through a lot, but I don't really remember the grind of it. I just knew it was like grinded. But I don't, and I wish I just documented it a little bit better. Yeah, it's just interesting. Yeah.
Well, we find. I was just explaining. I just had a conversation with Molly before we started, and in life we find what we focus on. I said, if I give you 2 blank journals right now, and one says, I want you to go out today, and I want you to fill this journal with all the strife and angst and bad things you see in the world. she will absolutely fill that journal up. If I hand her another journal and said, I want you to go out and see all the beautiful, amazing Cannonball moments, unbelievable things you see in the world, she will absolutely fill it up. So it's what journal you choose to fill out, right? It's what, and you're so dead on. I think somebody had said, and I was going to ask you this later, but what my superpower is, and I said it's gratitude for every moment. Because if I have gratitude, I can memorialize it. If I don't have gratitude, I can't memorialize it. What's your superpower?
Man, I was just, before I get to my superpower, I was just thinking, like, I've been alive for 18, now I got myself thinking about my time, you know, like, I've been alive for 18,000 days, basically. Yeah. And that's a lot of days, but at the same time, like, I don't remember, where did those days go? Yeah. Where did those days, what the hell happened in 18,000 days? Yeah. Wow. And now I'm like, okay, in the next 10 years, I got 3,000 days, right? 3,600 days or whatever in 10 years. And how many days ahead am I going to remember? Like, how many Cannonball moments or moments in general of those 3,000 days in the next 10 years, roughly, am I going to remember? Why am I going to remember them? How do I make them memorable? What do I want to accomplish in them? Yeah. My superpower at this point, I won't even call it a superpower, is... I think my superpower to date has been my networking and how I make people feel and how I feel about people. Yeah. Because when you get a 980 on your SAT, you have to rely on relationships. And that's always been my thing. I've always had people rooting for me, and because I root for them. Yeah. I'm rooting for you. I hope you have the best podcast ever. And, you know, we spent a half an hour talking about, I'm curious about your kids. I'm curious about your wife. I want to know, you didn't go to college. How'd you do a dishwasher? You gave up a scholarship? Like, it's an amazing story. Yeah. You know, you're someone that lives miles away from me, thousands in Maryland, and here we are, and I'm interested. Yeah. That's been my superpower, and everybody has it. Yeah. I've always cared the most. And that's people like want to be, you know.
Want to be around.
Yeah, them. Like, I'm going to, in 5 years, I'm going to remember. I'm going to see you and I'll be like, how are the twins? Oh, were they 14? Were they 18 now? 20? Yeah. What are they doing? How? It's going to, and it never goes away. And that's been my superpower. And it's not hard. No. It's not even a superpower. It's just a fucking basic human thing to care. Yeah, just but like, a lot of us are so wrapped up. If you didn't bring up Marquis Jet or Zico or any of this stuff, it's not on my mind. It happened in my life, and it happened because of relationships, people, and etc. But it's done. I'm not living in that. It doesn't define me. Yeah. If they push delete in my memory bank right now, and all that went away, all that history went away, but I still had all my friendships, wealthiest guy on the planet. So it's just. That's my superpower. Love that. But it's true.
Yeah. Well, listen. I
guess it's gratitude. I guess in a way too.
Well, I think what today you were like. I said I just want to listen. I want to be around this energy as much as I can. You can feel it. I did a podcast at VaynerMedia, owned by Gary Vaynerchuk, and I interviewed his CEO and chief heart officer for the podcast. And I said, when I walked into that office, you felt energy. You literally felt energy. One of the best books I ever read was a book called Power versus Force. It talks about the power of energy. And I felt it when I walked in there. I walked in here today, and it was exemplified. I'm saying it was even stronger.
Yeah, we got
crazy energy. And I said, I just want to be around this energy. You say, well, stick around today, and I'm going to be in some meetings where you can sit through. Like, that's where you say that's common practice. Like, it's common sense. It doesn't make it common practice because people don't live that way. Not in reality. Most people, like you said, live in a box. And you're saying, hey, listen, one of your, I don't know if it was your book, your first podcast, you said, I'd literally walk up to people and be like, I want to be your friend. Like, that's,
I do.
Like, that's not crazy. It's crazy to be that open. You know?
It makes me feel really good to make people be better, to be the best version of themselves or get more. I remember at one of my companies, I had two guys that had like really just kind of like pothead kind of guy in a good way. Yeah. Just like stoners sitting on the couch. They weren't relaxing. Yeah. Cool dudes, weren't into working out. Yeah. And I got one of them, both of them became super fit. One of them ran multiple marathons. Yeah. And I just remember when he crossed the first marathon and we put him on, we were on a training program together. We did a lot of runs together. We worked together. Yeah. And I said to him, I was like, I was like, let's do something amazing, man. And after a couple of weeks, when he started to realize that, like, wow, life for me could be a lot more than just sitting on a couch smoking, which he loved, and I didn't want to take it away from him.
Right.
When I watched him complete the marathon, like the hug he gave me, I mean, that feels better than me signing a deal or a contract. And that's always been, something that's important to me. My walk today, I was talking about my friend. Like, the talk was about his business. How do we make your business better? How do we scale it? How do you guys, like, what's the and it starts with questions. I was asking him all these questions, like, how much money do you want to make? First of all, let's reverse engineer. What do you want to make? Yeah. And do you want to? What's important? Do you want to work out of home? Okay. Do you want to help people? That's the most. How you gonna? We made a whole list, and we reverse engineered it, into like how to do it, and that made me feel good, better than. So that's always been something that's important to me. I think the energy you feel is, and it's infectious. Yeah. Brian now from the couch, he wants to help. He's inspiring people. Now his friends that were smoking pot want to be like, whoa, man, Brian ran a marathon, man, whoa, I want to go, let me get a gym membership, and now they're doing a Spartan, and now they're doing, it's infectious. That's crazy. So it's got the domino effect, and that's very rewarding.
What's crazy is what you just said, and I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but this is how you just brought it to life. Is you were asking questions, right? I tell people all the time, everybody has answers. Geniuses ask questions, right? So you're asking questions. And every question you ask, and this is so probably on an unconscious level, was a what and how question. Because really, I think you tell a lot about people by the questions they ask. And every question you've asked me this morning was what and how. And what the difference is what and how requires people to have full-length conversations. You're not looking for one-word answers. You're looking for collaboration. Well, on our one-on-one call that we did, it was all about collaboration. I mean, your mastermind group, it's about collaboration. You build your life resume. It's not Jesse standing on the mountain. It's let's collaborate. It's all what and how ways. I'm saying it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Questions are really important. I ask myself a lot of questions, but I ask people a lot of questions too, because a lot of times we're in our own bubble.
Yeah. So
it's really hard for you to rate yourself, grade yourself. Your perception of yourself might be very different than the world's. Yeah. I'm sure it is. Right. So when you ask people questions, it's a lot different than asking yourself questions.
Yeah. Well, it shows you care.
It shows you care, but I'm saying you can really pull stuff out of people. Because sometimes you don't want to ask yourself hard questions, or you don't want to admit certain things. But if you can, when you have someone, that's why coaches are so important. Yeah. And that's why having people that you can really... I remember, I mentioned this, of course, but I remember when Warren Buffett said to my wife, sometimes it's important to have an orangutan, someone that you can just talk to, and even if they don't talk back, you're just getting it out and talking it through and hearing yourself talk and asking these questions, getting it out there versus keeping it compartmentalized inside is really important. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You just gotta get it out. You do. Your wall is a whiteboard wall. My office board is a whiteboard wall. And whenever I'm stuck, I what and how it to death. I'm like when you ask somebody, if I ask my kids who did this, it puts them on the defensive immediately. I'm going to get a defensive answer. If I ask why is this, again, defensive. When I ask them what and how, and I ask myself what and how questions, it lets down the sword and the shield, and it lets me really open up to what do I really want? How can I make it better? So even if asked me, like, if I said to my daughter, if she didn't do her homework, and I said, why didn't you do your homework? You know what kind of answer I'm going to get? A very defensive answer, because she feels attacked. If I say, hey, what can we do to make sure that you see homework as a priority? Same exact, I'm going after the same thing, but one opens loud conversation and allows real dialogue. It's amazing to me what you can do when you just what and how any problem that you have, anything you want to overcome, what and how it, and you get such great dialogue. And that seems... My kids will be home in 2 hours, so I'd love for you to sit down and what and how them to death. Right? What and how, right? It's
a lot easier when it comes from someone that's not their parent.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, all right, let's jump to the business side of it, which I think is, again, I don't think it's the most fascinating side. I think it's fascinating, but I find the authenticity side of you, and I think authenticity is a really heavily used word now, but you absolutely exemplify it. So, but let's jump to the business side. We'll start with the rapper, Jesse James, right? You start, you start rapping songs because that's what you did back in the day. Everybody, right? Everybody rapped back then.
Well, I mean, I grew up in the 80s. My teenage years were in the early 80s. So I was, at that time, there was a shift in pop culture. All of a sudden, hip-hop was emerging. You know, I lived in New York, so in Long Island, but close to the city. And I was just around it, and it was exciting. You talk about energy. There was this huge momentum shift. All of a sudden, radio, TV, video is starting to gravitate and introduce the world to hip-hop. Remember, no internet, this and that. So I was discovering this. I felt like I was part of the discovery process as a kid living in New York. So I got into it. And I started working on, first going to skating, rinks, Long Island, and then, but then started working on, in my dorm room in college, I'm like, man, I want to make a demo, and doing open mic nights and concerts and this kind of stuff. But anyway, it led to a demo and ultimately led to a record deal. Yeah.
Yeah. So fast forward there. How does that get you from there to the Knicks? Because this is again another shift moment. Right?
Well, that was the key moment in my life. Yeah. Well, I got dropped from my record label after the first album because my only goal was to get a record deal, and I put so much energy, like all my energy, every ounce of energy in my body. My father owned the plumbing supply house. I had no connections. Getting a record deal required like a tremendous amount of creativity, energy, etc. When I finally got it, I was like, I took my foot off the gas pedal. I'm like, I'm out of energy, and I didn't reset my goal. I didn't say like I rushed through the album. It didn't matter. I hit my goal, get a record deal. And once that happened, I took my foot off the gas pedal. I didn't get picked up for a second album. So I moved back to New York from LA where I was living, and I had really no resume. I only had two things to put on my resume. I was a kiddie pool attendant before that, and then I had a record. So my wife always says that you find your true purpose at the intersection of what it is you love to do, what you're good at, and providing something positive to the world. So I love music. I love the music, and I love sports. So I married those two things together and wrote a theme song for the Knicks. And they paid me $4,000 to do the song. It cost me $4,800 to record it. I had to pay the lawyer that I then had, and the studio, the engineer, the singer, the producer, etc. And that's not a great business model.
Yeah, right.
Like $4,000, you lose $800 on the trade.
Right.
But I would have paid the Knicks $4,000 to do the song. At the time, I didn't realize that was the best credential I could have. All of a sudden, I was hired by the Knicks. I had this calling card. The song became massively successful, wildly successful. It was like became the number one most requested song on New York radio at the time because the Knicks got hot. And every team that came to Madison Square Garden was like, man, why don't we have a song and video like this? And that became the start of, that was kind of like my aha moment. Like, wait a second. No other teams have songs like this. I'm just going to go write songs for all these teams. Man, $4,000. There's 100 pro sports teams. I could probably sell half of them and get some efficiencies to make a couple of dollars each song. Like, that would be a cool business. And that's what I started doing.
So I'll get to this later. I'll ask this later. But one of the things I notice about you is you said I don't even know if it's set a goal. You said this is what I'm going to achieve, and then you don't wait. Like, you don't deter from that, right? There's no tyranny, another tyranny, right? The tyranny of the how. So people say, I want to become a rapper. I want to start a company, and immediately they have this great insight of pure, like, what's true to them. And then immediately the how, but how am I going to do that? I'm not going to. And then all of a sudden they deter from it. It doesn't seem like you have that.
I'm going to change my superpower now that you bring this up. I'm going to flip my superpower.
Yeah.
I think my superpower, maybe I have different color capes that I put on in different situations.
Yeah.
But I think my superpower is enthusiasm. So I think when I get an idea, like after the Knicks song, I was so enthusiastic that I didn't even have time to write a business plan. I didn't have time. I didn't care. I had so much enthusiasm around getting started and figuring it out that I didn't want to write a business plan. I didn't want to listen to anybody tell me no. I didn't want to ask anybody, is this a good idea or bad idea? Because nothing was going to fuck with my enthusiasm. So I just went, and I started to figure out as I go. Now, sometimes that could be could lead you into problems. Like,
yeah.
whoa, I wish I knew more about this. Like, this
Right.
is harder than I thought.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you go and you figure it out and you navigate as you go. You call audibles, you twist and turn.
Yeah.
When I wrote the Knicks song, and I remember exactly the moment, I started writing songs for different teams. But it was only until I said, well, wait a second, people want this song and they can't get it, that I had this idea to take all the songs they play in the arena, Madison Square Garden, and license them. So everything from Puff Daddy to YMCA by the Village People to Macarena, whatever they were playing in the arena. And I was like, let me put great moments in team history on like a CD, and then I'll add my song. And I'll have like a musical program like that, because I couldn't sell. I need something I could really package and sell.
Right.
And then I'm like, I'm there for every sports team. I remember exactly where that was. Exactly. We were just talking about how many moments do you remember?
Remember that one?
I remember that. I can smell it. And as soon as that happened, I was in business. That was my business plan. I'm gonna write songs for teams, and I'm gonna put together these CDs, and I'm gonna sell them. And that's what I did. And we sold that company to a public company. But I was 23, 24 years old or something like that, 24, 25. And ready, fire, aim, man.
Yeah.
I was enthusiastic. I started writing a book, Living with the SEAL, same formula. I started out as a blog. I never expected to write a book. I never said I'm going to hire a Navy SEAL so I can write a book.
Yeah.
The book didn't even happen until 5 years after he left my house for the first time. But I started writing a blog, and I was working on a separate book. And I was like, wait a second. This is the book. I'll make like my memoir around this SEAL experience.
Yeah.
And once I had that enthusiasm hit me, I would just sit up and boom. I didn't ask people, is this a good idea? Should this be a book? I didn't need validation from anybody to tell me. I didn't seek validation. My enthusiasm was my validation. And that was it. And I just started knocking it out, and it became a bestseller. And again, it doesn't always work out, but that energy, you're using all the words. Like, you don't need a 1600 on your SAT. No. Energy, enthusiasm,
920.
caring. All right. You could have cheated off me.
I think I spelled my last name wrong.
All right, well, okay. I want to cheat it off you.
Yeah, right.
But I'm saying, like, these are all things that we all have,
Yeah.
and people underestimate them. They
Right.
think they need all this experience or money, or the timing has to be right, or, and those are things that are important, but those aren't. I'll take enthusiasm, caring the most. I'll take that over, a 1600 genius that doesn't have the passion or the drive any day.
Yeah, the ego needs validation. What you just said is, which I think it's got to go on your wall, because it's probably one of the best quotes I've ever heard, is my enthusiasm is my validation. I think that the idea, because that sets you on the right path, right? That the idea of saying, I know that when we have our best thoughts, our best ideas, that is us at what we were created to be. That is the layers of all the bullshit have been shielded away for that very moment, and we aspire to be this because that's what we were created to be, right? To be great. And so what happens is we have it, and then all of a sudden the layers go back on and we go away from it. What you're saying is, I find it inspires me, and I allow it to push through all the other bullshit.
Yeah, it's like, that's my rocket fuel.
Yeah.
I'm fueled by enthusiasm. I'm not fueled by anything else. And sometimes you have to do things that you're not enthusiastic about, obviously.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, that it's jet fuel for me. It's
awesome.
jet fuel. Like, if we came up with an idea right now and we were both enthusiastic about it and passionate about it, and I was like, Chad, you know what, man? Let's go. We're gonna go. We take over the world.
Yeah. We're going to do that shit right after this podcast.
Yeah, we'll erase the board, man.
Put it on the whiteboard. So let's go back to Living with SEAL. When you wrote Living with SEAL, and even now, when you look back on it, if I asked you what type of book it is, like if in a Barnes and Noble on a bookshelf, right? What category did you envision that book to be? Was it a health book? Was it a motivation book? Was it what book did you set out for this to be?
Memoir.
A memoir.
I wanted to be able to tell some of my stories without having to tell the stories all about me. So I felt like, and it is, I talk about my childhood. I talk about not having Novocaine when I got my cavities. I tell the story of Marquis Jet. I have the Knicks story in there. There's business stories, how I met my wife. But under the guise of the interaction with this Navy SEAL who comes to live with me, and but it's one of those books. It is one part fitness, it's one part motivation, and it's one part memoir. So, because I'm highly ADD, I don't fit in any category. The book doesn't really fit in any category either.
But it fits in every category. It doesn't fit in any, but it fits in all. And what I mean by that is, because I was trying to figure it out, right? Because somebody, when I've given, I don't know how many, I bet I've given 50 copies of it away. And they're like, well, what's the book about? I'm like, well, if you want to get healthier, read it. I can't tell you, in my training for marathons and my running, how many times when I woke up, I wake up and you have that momentary battle it's the battle of the snooze, right? Who's going to win, the snooze or me? And I'm like, it's go time, motherfucker, right? Immediately I hear you saying this in my head, right? And I pop out of bed. So it's a get up book. I look at the way you parent your children that you talk about in the book. It makes me I gravitate towards some things where I've said I want to infuse this with the way I raise my children. It talks about marriage. It's a marriage book. The way you relate to your relationship with Sarah, how you met her, how you took her on a steam, and I'm like, that's authentic, that's real. I got to get back to that with my wife. So it literally doesn't fit in any, but it fits in all. It doesn't. I think it's one of those books.
Yeah, I didn't want to write a book that was like, you have to write a training book, or you have to write a fitness book, or you have to write a mindset book, or whatever. I just wanted to write a book. And I just wanted to write the best book that I could do. It's not, Mark Twain. This isn't a book that necessarily, who knows where it's going to be 10, 20 years from now. I didn't care. I don't care. I wanted to write a book that I wanted to write. And when I wrote it, so I didn't think, because the publisher was asking me, like, where's this going to live? Should this be is it a memoir? Is it a fitness book? And I'm like, let me just write the book. And I don't care where it lives. Let me just get the book the way I think the book needs to be. Yeah. And that was one of the few projects, SEAL is one of the few projects where I really can say that, like, that was the best I could do. Yeah. Like, that was the best book that I'm capable of at the time doing. And, like, people say, well, okay, let's take Marquis Jet, a company that was wildly successful. Was that the best version of was that company the best it could be, even though it was, we did $5 billion in sales, cumulative sales, and it was, 4,000 customers were satisfied, and we built an amazing brand. We still probably left something on the table. Like, if going back now, maybe we could have different hires, or we could have done some of the marketing better. Maybe there were more offerings. Who knows? I don't know. And we always, who knows what the limitation was? We put the limitation on ourselves. It was amazing, but I still think if we went back now and said, okay, do it again, we would build a company that would have been a lot maybe better. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. That book was the best that I had at that moment. And what that means is I didn't leave anything on the table. Like, when my friends were at happy hour and they're like, come on, man, the Pats are playing the Falcons, we got to go. I was like, guys, I really need to put an hour in. When my wife went, everyone went to sleep, and I would tiptoe upstairs and I would sit there till 4 a.m. It was like, I was sacrificing things because I wanted it to be, and I read it. There's not a lot of things in your life you can go back and say, like, wow, I really put so much effort into it. Maybe your marathon training, when you knocked off an hour or whatever you knocked off, you can go back and it makes you proud. Yeah, right. And that was one of the few things. Honestly, I've had a lot of success, a lot of failure, a lot of success. But that's something I'm really proud of the effort that I put into that book. As a first-time author who had no idea what he was doing, just how many times I reread it. I reread it 80 times. Yeah. And that's a lot of time.
A lot of time.
And that's what I'm most proud about the book.
That's awesome.
I could have handed it in a month earlier.
And you did.
I could have handed it in. And I was like, you know what? It's not there yet. It's not there yet.
You know what's great about that? Bill Walsh once said, The score takes care of itself. Write a book, the score takes care of itself. And it sounds to me like you didn't set out for it to be a New York Times bestseller. You just set out to do the very best you could. And whatever happened, if that book sold 3 copies, you were going to still be proud and have gratitude for the effort that you put into it.
I didn't want it to be a New York Times bestseller. This is going to sound crazy because when my book first came out, I didn't promote it really at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't go nuclear. I didn't go crazy with my contacts and buy all this media time, and I could have done all that because the list, that didn't mean anything to me. I didn't want to promote something that people didn't like.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me put it out in the world and let me see if people like it. If people, why would I could buy my way onto the New York Times bestseller. I mean, people can literally, go buy 1 million billboards and buy ad time and TV ads and get companies to sponsor you. And, there's probably a way that you can really push it out there. I want to make sure people like it. So I literally waited like 2 or 3 weeks to see what the reviews are, see how people liked it. And not just of course my college roommate's going to like it.
Yeah.
How does his friend that doesn't know me,
Yeah.
someone that's never heard my name, how are they going to get impacted by the book? Once that happened, I was like, well, okay, let me put a little fuel on this thing.
Well, how many people do you think you've affected because of it now? I'm saying, you look at David Goggins, and David Goggins just has his first book coming out. He's got 10 million followers that follow him. That doesn't happen if you don't write the book. I'm saying the idea that the idea of all of this, right, comes from doing your best work for the right reasons. And what happens is your reach now is exponential. I'm saying it's amazing to me just by having the right soul, the right motivation, just the far-reaching.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super happy for all the success Goggins is having, and I'm super happy for all of the people that have been impacted by the book and all the fallout of the book, because it's got a trickle-down effect. People share things.
Oh, yeah.
But again, it starts, for me, it was started with the enthusiasm of, wow, this is super fun. Like, I'm behind a computer screen. I'm laughing out loud as I'm writing it. Like, I would laugh out loud of, like, this shit is funny. Like, and then I would be like, are people going to think that's funny, or am I just going to think it's funny?
Funny?
And then I would be like, wow, how can I make it funnier?
Oh.
But how can I make it funnier? And then how this page isn't funny. How do I make this funny?
Yeah.
So I really put the time into it. And anything, it's just, the only reason why I'm bringing that up is it's just, I found that, to me, like, one of the greatest indicators of success is how I feel about the effort. So like, you could have trained like crazy for the marathon that you just knocked an hour and change off of your first marathon time, and maybe you only knocked off 30 minutes. So maybe you didn't get to your goal of 4:15 or whatever you got.
Yeah.
You still might have looked back and be like, holy cow, I got up when it was raining. I beat the snooze button. I did all these things. Okay, I didn't get my goal of 30 minutes. So maybe the scoreboard can be wrong sometimes. But you still, like, what a victory. You got to the starting line. You lost all this weight. You became incredibly disciplined. What an amazing example to your kids that they saw you chasing this dream. I mean, there's so many layers to just that run. That one run is 50 lessons.
Oh, yeah.
It's discipline. It's showing your kids. It's saying no to other stuff so you'd have time to run, putting yourself first, having a goal and seeing it to fruition, the preparation that was involved, the research. Like, there's 50 lessons
in that one
little run
exactly right.
that you don't even realize, that might not even rear themselves into, maybe people are going to want to talk to you on your podcast because, like, oh, look what this guy did, man. He came from here to here. You just don't know.
Well, I think that's such a great point. I don't think without that training for the marathon, I don't think that I do the podcast at all. I don't think the podcast exists. I think what happens is, for me, running became a moving meditation. Whenever I ran this morning. I ran 4 miles this morning, and when I'm running, I feel good about myself, and my best thoughts come out. And it was on a run that I said, I'm going to do a podcast. And immediately the tyranny of the house steps in and said, but Chad, you don't have a college education. How the hell are you going to get guests on your podcast, right? Who's going to want to talk to a guy? And then I had to smack myself into reality. I look at my wrist, I snap my wrist and say, I'm enough to do this. And if it wasn't for their run, I don't know if the podcast happens. It's all you talk about. It's all cumulative, right? It's all builds on one another. Everything you do.
Yeah, it's so true. I think the reason you probably, and you're very enthusiastic about the podcast.
Yeah.
That's part of what's driving you. You know, like that's your fuel. You probably love it. You're meeting interesting people.
Yeah.
Here you are. I mean, I can't believe the names that of people you have coming up on the show.
Yeah, I got you. I'm saying I got Jesse Itzler.
No, and I appreciate that. But you've been able to get, and you were mentioning some of the people that have committed.
Oh yeah, Gary Vee and Jim Quick, and I'm saying
these are thought leaders and people that like. You know, and here you are, and it's not a knock on you, but I mean, I give them credit and you credit. You've been able to, whatever your pitch is, something is translating, whether it's the persistence, the adrenaline, the enthusiasm, whatever it is, it's working. Now, for me, when I look at that, I'm like, that can translate into anything you want to do. If you can get those kind of guests and be able to do this with not coming out of nowhere. You came out of nowhere with the show, and now you're on fire. Well, that can translate into anything. Yeah. So, like, whatever you're going to do, like that, I would bet on it. Yeah. That's someone I would bet on.
I think a lot of it goes, and I would love to get your take on this. I tell people all the time, you get in life what you believe you're worthy of. When you don't believe you're worthy of a lot of things, you don't get a lot of things. But I truly believe, and this isn't ego talking, but I believe that every human being was built worthy of a life of abundance. That's what you weren't created to have a life of lack. You just can't. I can't wrap my head around that. But if you believe you're worthy, then your behaviors fall in line with that, right? If you truly believe, I believe that I'm worthy of sitting here with you. You know, I look up to you. You're a great, I say, a friend, a coach, a mentor, all those things. But I believe that I'm worthy of sitting here. I forget that sometimes, but I'm saying, do you believe that you have to believe you're worthy of success to have success and love and all those things?
I think it's super important. I think it's really important. But I still think that most people live 80% versions of themselves. I still think that most people, even people that operate at a high level, you know, even my wife. I think my wife can do a lot more. You know, I tell her all the time, she's done an amazing thing in business, and she's impacted millions of people through her philanthropy and all this stuff. Yeah. So she is. What she's done is absolutely incredible, but I know what she's capable of. Oh, yeah. I see her every day. I know what she has inside of her, and I still think that she hasn't scratched the surface of what she's capable of doing. Yeah. So you grade yourself against you. Yeah. You know, so when I look at you, Chad, you know, it's like, okay, how old are you?
I'll be 45.
45. So let's say you got 40 years left, 35, 40 years, maybe a 50, 60, but you don't have hundreds.
Right.
Your scorecard now, to me, is today for the next 40 years. All the other stuff, I think it's great you didn't go to college, and you've been able to do what you've done. And I think it's great that you're a teacher and a coach, and you've done all this stuff, and a leader in sales and everything. But you did that already. You'll build on it. But the scorecard, that game's been played. The scorecard now is today to 45. My scorecard is today to 30. That's the only thing I'm going to grade myself on. I can't grade. When am I going to sit back and pat myself on the back that I ran a marathon, or I ran 100 miles, or I did this? Only that's the old school scorecard. It's like a bowling thing. Yeah. That game is done, and now they go. They put the new thing, and now you have a new 10 frames. I have 30 frames in front of me. Each frame is a year.
Love that.
The fuck am I going to do with it? Like, that's how I'm going to grade myself. And that, you know, if I go lax on it, because I could go sit on the beach, then okay, I'll grade my relaxation bucket at 10, and maybe that's cool. Yeah. But for me, I want that to have. I want a high frame. I want high frames in those years. Now listen, everybody has a different thing. Some people might say, well, you just want to be happy, enjoy. I am happy. I do enjoy my life. I have balance, vacations, all that stuff. Yeah. I want to do shit because I don't want to be like like that 80% version. I don't want to be given this opportunity and I just spent my last 30 years sitting on a beach reading books. Nothing against that. Yeah. That's just not me.
Yeah.
I want to be 110%. I want to over-index in it all.
Yeah, I love that.
And that means not looking in the past. That means looking at today. Give me my 10-pound bowling ball and let me, like that little bowling lane is my lane, and let me see if I can roll strikes, and that's what I want to do. If it makes sense, but
so
the window's short, man. The window's short.
Well, it goes back, and this is what I said I was going to ask you earlier, is that there's a pattern. This is the pattern what I believe I figured out about you. You go back to, all right, I'm gonna be a rapper. Great, you get signed, you have a hit. All right, move on. I'm going to start a company, Marquis Jets. I'm going to build it. It's going to be successful. I'm going to rock it. I sell it to Warren Buffett. Check, done. I'm going to get involved in Zico coconut water. Before coconut water was even a thing, you're ahead of the game. I'm going to get it. I build it. I conquer it. I sell it. I check it off the list. It seems like you live exactly what you just said. I'm not. It's a new game every day. So all right, what am I going to conquer now? And now move off. And it's not. And I think it goes back. And I can even relate it back to your U.S. Open story when you were a kid. Right, so what is I know the U.S. Open story, but tell, because I think that's where it clicked on me that this has been a lifelong thing for him. This isn't started when he became older. This was when you were a kid too.
Yep. No, when I was a kid, I lived in Long Island, and the U.S. Open was in Queens, and I would take the train with my friends, one friend in particular, to the U.S. Open, but we never had tickets, so we would try to sneak in and see if we could sneak in to go watch the matches, because how are we going to spend $30, $40 or whatever it was to get into the grandstand? We couldn't do it. So we would take the train, and after a while, we figured out how to crack the code. We were able to sneak in through the news door, holding the wires, like we were working with the camera guys when they were coming through, and like we would go in. And I remember once we finally got in, after all these attempts, my friend was like, "Let's go into the main thing and watch." And I'm like, "What? I'm gonna go back out and see if I can sneak in again." And like I didn't even care about the tennis matches.
Yeah. So now fast forward, which is such a great story. Fast forward, right? It's you start Marquis Jets with nothing, right? With literally not even contacts, just because you once went on a private jet and said, "Oh shit, this is extreme, right? I want more of this." So you say, "Well, okay, well, you're enthusiastic brain, you're an enthusiastic optimist." You say, "All right, I'm going to start a company." You start a company, you conquer it, and then you sell it. It's like, all right, now what else can I sneak into? It goes right back to that.
Right. You're right about the pattern. As I think about it, over the next 30 years, if I had something that was hot, like really, really successful, again, once it got to that point, there's no way I would do one thing for the next 30 years, even if it gave me everything. I just wouldn't do it. So, because I love experiences, I love newness, and I like that. Just think it's so important for everybody to introduce newness, especially as you get older, into your life. Because if you live in routine, the clock goes so fast. And then all of a sudden you've been like, oh man, you have all these regrets. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. I'm yes to everything. I'm yes to almost everything if it's important to me, and
you have two rules, right? When it comes to saying yes, right? What are your two rules?
Oh, were you gonna say all in or?
No. I was gonna say what you had said about it's got to be convenient. You got to be convenient, right? And it can't be a headache. It can't be. Right?
Yeah, low aggravation and high reward.
Yeah, low aggravation, high reward.
Well, yeah, because I don't, and it's true with people too.
Yeah.
At this stage in my life, when you're younger, you can deal with a lot of you need aggravation. Right. There's going to be a lot of aggravation to get a lot of reward. Yeah, Nothing is going to come easy.
Exactly right.
It's going to be, going to meetings, laughing at jokes that aren't funny, going to dinner appointments, late nights, etc. High aggravation, things break, figuring it out, potentially high reward. As you get older, even relationships when you're younger, this guy's such a jerk, but you know what? Like, I got to stick around them because we're doing stuff and we're opening up doors and whatever. As you get older, there's a fundamental shift. At least there should be, or at least there was for me, where you're like, wait a second. I don't want that high aggravation relationship. I don't want that high aggravation business. I want as little aggravation in my life. Of course you're going to have things are going to happen. The pipes are going to break. Your kids are going to have glitches. You're going to have challenges. We all have that. But you don't want to bring in additional aggravation. You want low aggravation and high reward. And that's kind of like,
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
So how do you? So let's, as we start to wind down, because I want to be respectful of your time, but let's talk about Build Your Life Resume, because I think this is, for me, having done all the research and knowing you really well, as to what I know, this is maybe not different, but this is pretty impactful, and because this doesn't, Marquis Jets was catering to people that could afford to fly a private jet, right? Zico Coconut Water was more of a corporate kind of sale, right? You're selling but this right now, I met somebody that works for you, said, well, I met Jessie through Build Your Life Resume, and I came and I ended up working for him, and she's young in school, and I said, well, what did your parents think about it? She goes, oh, well, my mom was going through the course with me, right?
Yes.
So again, here, this is different, because this is Jessie to consumer. This is you directly. This isn't somebody else doing the calls for you. This isn't corporate. This is
No.
So tell people about Build Your Life Resume, because I think I've been into a lot of online courses, and there is a statistic that I think it was like 84% of people that start online courses never finish them. And I've started online courses that I haven't finished.
Yeah, me too.
This course I couldn't get enough of. Right, I signed up again, did another one. What is Build Your Life Resume, and where did it come from?
People are asking me first of all, thanks for taking the course.
Yeah.
Thanks for being in it. You stood out in the course because you were active and you were posting. I guess you have a presence or a way. That's why the podcasts are working. Yeah. No, people were asking me for meetings and for advice and coaching advice and life coaching and all this kind of stuff and specific business questions. And I couldn't take all those meetings.
Yeah.
So I just said, well, what if I offered some kind of course? I've spoken in these masterminds and courses, and a lot of them are, and I'm not knocking them,
Yeah.
but a lot of them are cookie cutter, or they produce a video, so they don't have a pulse on the group.
Right.
And I just said, well, what if I made myself accessible for 8 weeks, put together a curriculum, created a one-to-many group coaching platform, and try it? And what would be the right topic? Now, the challenge was a lot of the courses that people take are very measurable. And for example, I will help you build your email list in 3 days. Okay, you can see they're going to give you stuff, and at the end of these 3 days, I'm going to teach you how to flip real estate. It's measurable. I'm going to learn. I'm going to show you how to grow your Instagram followers. How am I going to be like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to live life a little bit better? That's a tough thing. And I recognize that. So I was like, well, let me just take everything at 30,000 feet that I've kind of learned, experienced emotionally, in business, wellness, everything, and package it into an 8-week program. Can I do it?
Yeah.
And I tried it for the first time. I said, if anyone doesn't like it, 100% money back guarantee. I didn't want any aggravation or pressure, no questions asked.
Right.
I didn't want any pressure on me.
Yeah.
And then let me price it reasonably. A lot of these courses are thousands of dollars, and I'm like, I just want to make it a couple $100, open it up to as many people that can benefit, and let me try it. And I just asked my audience on social media, would you be interested in this? And I got so many responses, so then I did it, and it was successful. Now I continue to tweak it so that each I do it every 8 weeks. It takes its own it changes a little bit because I improve it based on feedback. And I've gotten more out of it, I think, than anybody, because sometimes teaching and thinking and going back and memorializing some of these moments, and this U.S. Open story you just said, like, I would have never remembered that had not been for this. And then having people share, look at your story. That inspired me. I was like, God, man, this guy just knocked off about a quarter of the time it took him to run a marathon, and you're not a marathon. You don't have the typical marathon frame.
I'm not a Kenyan.
Yeah, I mean, you're like a big guy, tall.
6'8", 250.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man. So it inspired me. It was like, well, shit. I have a lot of benchmarks from marathon times. What am I trying to improve on?
Yeah.
So you get these lessons that come back to you. So I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and so what's great about it, and this is, this, I don't know when this is going to air, but right now there's the lottery today is up to like $1.6 billion. And I'll buy a ticket, but there are people that will literally put all their paycheck on
Right.
to go buy a lottery ticket,
Right.
rather than take that paycheck and invest it in themselves. And that was what is amazing to me about your course. And I've said this to 100 people. Your course was, if it was free, nobody'd buy in, they wouldn't believe it. If it was thousands of dollars, it'd be too expensive, they couldn't afford it. But it's priced to the point where literally it is less than a cup of Starbucks a day, and what you get out of it is immeasurable. It's unbelievable.
Well, I really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking again. I didn't read a book on like how to price this, or I didn't even ask anyone. I was just thinking like, you know, you go, you get a massage, it could be $100.
Yeah.
I talked to a lawyer, it's $200 an hour.
Yeah.
You know, something like this. Well, then this is an 8-week program.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been able to bring my wife in for some Q&A and some
the
guests.
guests you have in are
it's good.
unbelievable. And the connections, you go back, you know, I think that my daughter gave me a list of questions I'll have to ask you offline, but one of the questions that was, one of the things you talk about a lot in your books and is about connections.
Yeah.
And the amount of connections I've made inside the group, people that I'm friends with, I've done probably 4 or 5 calls, not like client calls, but one-on-one calls because people are asking me for my advice, or I see somebody else. The connections I've made inside that group, because you have like-minded people, is pretty fascinating.
It's great. No, man, it's like, I'm so glad I did it. And, you know, like most things in my life, this is again, it comes back down to enthusiasm. There was no business plan. There's never been a business plan. Once I kind of decided to do it, it was up and running in a week or two. Yeah. And who knows where it'll take. You know, I always tell people, and I've mentioned this before, you got to start the process. Yeah. Sometimes we overthink things, we make it complicated. Just start. See where it starts to go. And then you figure it out as you go along. And in a year from now, will this course be the same? No, when it started out, it was 4 months. Now it's 8 weeks. Maybe it'll be packaged in a more of a 4-week or 6-week thing. Yeah. Maybe it'll become more video. Maybe the content will change. Yeah. You just don't know, but you start it, you grow it, you think really big, and then you scale it as fast as you can. Nice. But you start it small.
Yeah, I love that. All right, last 2 questions. So, first question, and this is kind of, I asked people this question, but this was kind of a crazy question for you, is where do people find you? I'm saying, all you have to do is open your eyes and you're everywhere.
I don't know.
Everywhere.
No.
But so if people want to sign up for the course, go to buildyourliferesume.com.
No, they go to jesseitzler.com/BYLR.
Okay.
Or you can just find me on Instagram at Jesse Itzler.
It's awesome. One other question with that. 29029.
Yeah.
I haven't done it. It's on my budget list to do next year. Like, I got to do this thing. It's amazing. What is 29029? Talk about this.
Yeah, so I love physical challenges. I believe that everybody should put something big and challenging on their calendar once a year. Yeah. I rent a mountain, the whole mountain, bring in food trucks and tents that we sleep in. I basically set up like a little base camp, and it's 3 days. You hike up a mountain, take the gondola down, and you repeat that process. Up, gondola down, up, hike up, gondola down, until you climb the equivalent of Mount Everest or any of the 7 summits. And it's just a test of will. And it's called 29029 because that's the vertical feet of Everest, 29,029 feet. And we do it in Vermont in October. We do it in Utah in August. And the last Vermont one had a long waiting list, so it's catching on. Yeah. And we've really created a new category. It's endurance hiking. And what I love about it is it's low impact. Anyone can do it. It's a hike. It's walking. Yeah. But it's hard. Really hard. Way harder than anyone that signed up for it thought it would be. Yet we had 75% of the people that signed up, and we're talking about moms, dads, housewives, executives, all the way to Olympic athletes. Yeah. We had 3 Olympic athletes so far have participated in it. 75% of the people were able to finish it, and 25 didn't. But 100% of the people in all the events we've done have completed at least one of the 7 summits, meaning one of the top. So. Yeah, one of the equivalent of climbing like Kilimanjaro or Everest or one of the 7 summits. So that's an event that's my favorite weekend of the year. It's 3 or 4 days, 3 nights, 4 days. We bring in speakers the day before, so it's kind of like part retreat, part endurance challenge, part vacation. Yeah. And it's amazing.
I think I saw Lewis Howes did it this past one, right?
Yeah, I spent 7 hours with him doing it. Up and down the mountains. We did about 6 summits together.
Wow.
Throughout the night. We went until 3 in the morning.
Another
and it was
great thought
snowing. It was, and we were laughing, man. We were like, and again, here we are. We no, whatever happens to Lewis and I over the next decades,
Yeah.
we have this moment that he will never forget. There is no way either one of us will forget that mountain, being out there in the middle of the night, under the stars, struggling, cheering each other on. That's a bond that you can't get in a podcast. You can't get in a boardroom.
Moment.
And those kind of moments were tenfold because with complete strangers during this weekend. And that's just what I loved about it.
Awesome. All right, one last weekend talk. Hell on the Hill. Tell people what Hell on the Hill is. I tell people all the time, you gotta watch the Hell on the Hill videos. What is Hell on the Hill?
I can't even explain it because
you gotta just watch
you gotta
the video.
be there. But yeah, I mean, I again, this came out of just my own head. I live on this hill in my home in Connecticut. Has an 80-yard hill that's about a 40% grade.
Yeah.
Which is like, I guess, almost 2.5 times what a treadmill can go up.
Right.
You know, a regular 15%.
Yeah.
And in one of my training sessions, I was just running with some friends, and we were sprinting up the hill. We were doing hill sprints, and we were just like, "Do you think anyone could do 100 of these?" Like, no, it's impossible. And I'm like, "All right, well, let's set up a challenge." Right. So we set up a challenge, and now it's turned into this event. We've donated probably over $500,000. My wife and I, because everyone who participates chooses a charity, and this is my favorite part of the event. It's the best backyard race in America, like without question.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we have bands and it's just bonkers, but everybody stands up before the race, and for 1 minute, it's limited to 100 runners. So for 1 minute, they stand up and they say who they are and who they're running for in the charity, and then we donate $1,000 to each charity for all the people that participate. Plus, there's other stuff, but so everybody talks, and it's emotional. They talk about the charity or person they're running for, standing ovations for everybody. So now when I know you're running, so-and-so, John Doe is running for the Leukemia Society because her brother has leukemia. And this one's running for the veterans because he was a veteran and da-da-da. We've had people with stage 4 cancer run. I mean, it's just a really powerful day.
I'm excited. You invited me, and I back to a 80-acre farm. So my property backs to a farm, and it's very hilly. So I went and talked to the farm owner, and I measured out 80 yards at that slope, right? And I've already started training. So I said, "Can I borrow your hill?" He looks at me like I'm freaking crazy, right?
Right.
So can I borrow your hill until July or August, whenever it is? And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "I'm just going to train up and down. I got a sandbag, and I'm just going to go up and down from now until August because I'm going after Goggins' record."
His record's been broken.
What?
Yeah, Kevin the Cop. Kevin the Cop is the world record holder now at Hell on the Hill.
That's crazy. So I'm looking forward. So people can find that. So last question. So when you leave this earth, 50 years from now, whenever it may be, 60 years from now, what do you want your contribution to have been? What do you want people to say? This is what Jesse Itzler left the world with. What is that contribution?
You know, I've only recently started to think about that. Hopefully I don't have to think about that for another 40 or 50 years. But it's a very difficult question because I'm not like a legacy guy thinking about I'm in the moment now, and I just want people, I think with 4 children, I want people that are alive today to remember me as a good friend. Recently, at my 50th birthday, I flipped the script. And instead of having people come up and toast me or roast me, which usually happens, I called people up one by one, and I talked about how they've impacted my life. So I want people to understand how the relationship, how they've affected me, and hopefully I've affected them. So, but I don't know. I think at this age, it's really important to have found something that's pissed you off to the point that you want to like stand up and right versus wrong and kind of like bring awareness or protest to something. Doesn't mean you have to go in front of the White House and picket, but I think you have to find something that you feel is unjust and try to initiate some kind of change or awareness. So that's something that I'm passionate about now as related to the food industry, but and deception and advertising and this kind of stuff. So that's something that I want to. I was thinking about this, Chad. I can leave you with this, but I was thinking, like, imagine if I took all that energy we talked about. We talked a lot about energy. You walked in my house, you felt energy. You went to Gary Vee's, you felt an energy. I was talking about an enthusiasm. That's just an energy around stuff. I talked about how much energy it took me to get a record deal. And at the end of that, I was out of energy. So I took my foot off the gas. There was no more energy in the tank. Imagine if I harnessed all of the energy as an entrepreneur and a parent, all the energy in branding, creativity, selling, hustling money, getting rejection, getting thrown out of offices, all the no's that I've had to deal with, all the you can'ts that I had to go through, all the flights, the Greyhound bus trips, the subway rides, all the bike 20 miles to the studio as a kid, all the stuff, everything. If I channeled all of that energy into something outside of business and channeled into like a cause-related thing, if I took all the skills, connections, and everything that I have right now and put it into like, I am going to do this to make the world a better place because I am going to change a law or change this product or whatever, could I impact an industry? I think I can. So that's like, I'm shifting. There's a fundamental shift. I can't give 100% of it. But I was thinking to myself, like, the guys that I am, the companies that I'm passionate about going against, their CEO is a job. I have a passion. And I'll take that over the CEO of a high power that's just in it for the job versus the energy behind a cause any day. So that's, I don't know what the legacy is going to be or 150 years from now, but I want my kids to see that fight because they didn't get to see young me at 30 coming up. They see what you see. They see, you know, a nice house, a fancy kitchen, and all this stuff. They didn't see how it got there. So watch this. Watch me shake up an industry. You know, I want, like, watch what my father took on breakfast. Like, I'm taking on breakfast. And I want them to see that.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I can tell you, for what it's worth, that we don't buy cereal anymore because of you. We don't. We literally, we know the false advertising. I would have never known. I was unconsciously incompetent when it came to the deception of food and the effects it has. But your Friday post to the cereal industry and the breakfast industry is unbelievable. We don't eat it. We don't eat it, and we talk about it. So, you know, for whatever it's worth, I think that's already making its way out there. At least it did into my family, which improved the health of my family.
Big things on the highway coming after them. So that's I'm awesome. Excited about it. Yeah.
Well, listen, I from my daughter who loves you, my daughters who love you, from me, from everybody that. Man, just thanks for being you, and thanks for giving up your time today.
Man, I appreciate you coming in. I think we should go cannonball in the pool.
Just run and jump.
Absolutely, man. I got the clothes. We'll throw them in the dryer.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, brother. If you haven't read his books, I'm telling you, read his books. Take Build Your Life Resume course. Take it. I'm telling you, it'll be the greatest. Bet on you. Don't bet on the lottery. Bet on you, invest in this course, and you will be, I guarantee you will be better for it. I know I am. Thanks, Jess.
Thank you, man. Thanks, Chad. Awesome. Appreciate it, man.